As far as my background,
Yeah.
musically, or
Yes, sir. Musically.
okay, musically, I started taking piano lessons when I was 9, and then started trumpet lessons at school when I was a couple years later, and then just kind of gradually worked through those, and then in high school I started playing on a church worship team and just learning to play by chords, um, and then at a certain point I decided that majoring in music at college was going to be the direction I would go, and after college, just felt a real pull toward music ministry. And my wife and I went to Hillsong for a year in Sydney, Australia, and studied there, and came back and rejoined the church where we'd been before, leading the music team there, and um, did that for a while. And then I accepted my current teaching position, and I'm in my 7th year of that. I teach middle school, 6th grade band full time, and then I do the things with my business, Our Worship Sound, on the side with that. And so with that, that started out as I recorded this EP album.
Yep.
Somebody asked me, like, how are you going to promote it other than to say it's out there and it's free?
Yeah.
And just kind of talking through it, realizing that I've always had this uh, desire within me to do some training outside of our church for church musicians, worship musicians. And so that's where the YouTube channel came from, and that kind of took on a life of its own, and it's developed into to something bigger than I imagined or intended, but that's where we are today.
Man, that is amazing. I can't help but to ask you, how was it in Australia?
It was really nice. Sydney's just gorgeous. So we had a great time there. Great church, great people there. Had a lot of really cool experiences. At the same time, there was no place like home for us. And while some people go there and kind of get stuck there, actually, we were in a house, and they set us up. My wife and I were married at that time. We were there, and we were set up with 4 single girls from around the world, and one of them is still there. She's from Alaska. She's still there. She's one of the main music directors there now. So some people go there and get stuck, and we always just had it in our hearts to return home and be here. But Sydney's just beautiful.
That's cool, man. That's real good. I'm glad you got that experience, and hopefully one day I'll be as lucky as you, Mr. Thompson.
Yes,
That's
sir.
crazy. All right, I want to talk about a little bit, if you can, your role in the worship band at your church, and what are your responsibilities as well. A lot of people um, don't truly understand how significant each role is, and how to stay in their lane. So if you could just kind of talk to us a little bit about your role in the worship band at your church.
Sure. It always feels like it's a little bit in transition all the time, but I started out just playing keyboard, and then transitioned to, will you be the minister of music, and so overseeing the whole music team and being one of the main worship leaders. And then over time, it's still overseeing it, but trying to transfer some of the leadership responsibilities and roles to younger people and giving other people an opportunity to jump in there. But even that is, it's kind of like the responsibilities increase when you try to turn it over to somebody else, because now you're still responsible, but just in a different way. So as far as what I actually do is, I would say that I'm probably the music director, and then I kind of lead the instrumentalists, and I facilitate the leadership, getting things done. Um, I play keyboard still. I play some guitar. I kind of oversee the technological aspects of things as well. So whether that's Ableton or the main stage stuff, I'm kind of the one making that stuff happen.
Okay, all right. And you mentioned main stage. So um, the gear that you use for your live setup for worship services, a lot of people are starting to transition to that. Many of them don't really know how to get started. They don't really know what to do. So what gear are you currently playing with? Like everything that you have going on. You mentioned main stage, maybe your audio interfaces, and even the type of keyboards or MIDI controllers that you use. To kind of give us an
Hmm.
idea.
Yeah, I'm a little bit old school, I guess, with some of the stuff I use. Not so much because I'm like that old, but just because I haven't spent that much money on it. Um, but you kind of find something that works and you stick with it. For my main keyboard, I really like my Yamaha. It's an S80. It's
Oh
about
man, that's
about
powerful.
15 years old. but it's really solid. It feels good. I have a grand piano expansion card in it that I really like playing live with. So much so that when we needed a new keyboard for church, I made sure we tracked down and used S80 and put that same expansion card in it there. It's good stuff. And if the feel is right, that helps so much. So I pretty much just use that just for the piano sounds, maybe a pad, and then I typically run everything else through MainStage for other pads and delay effects and synth layers or whatever I'm using that for. And then that just runs out through a MIDI interface into the computer, controls MainStage. I've got this. I'm actually sitting at my piano right now, but this has been a real cool thing. This is an Akai LPD8. I don't know I'm not sure if this is the current model of what they make, but it's really handy. It's really inexpensive. It's got 8 drum pads where you can, switch between patches or tap the tempo, and it's got 8 knobs on it where you can adjust volume or different parameters, and I just Velcro that to the top of my keyboard, and that adds kind of that modern MIDI controller functionality to an older keyboard. So that's been a really, really good setup for me. I have another small MIDI keyboard that I use just to trigger Ableton tracks and loops, and then as far as output audio interfaces and all that, I run all the audio out through an old Presonus FirePod or FP10. Okay. It's an 8-channel FireWire interface that the main thing I use it for is just because it has 8 outputs. I can run 2 stereo outputs for keys. I can run 2 for the Ableton tracks out, and also have at least 1 left over just for the metronome to send that to the board. And then I mix my keys, my internal keys down with my MainStage keys in a line mixer and send that to the board, and I think that's pretty much it. Yeah.
Okay, that's cool. You said a lot of stuff. I'm like, what is that? What is that? And that brings me to a question. So if somebody is just getting started, some stuff is personal preference. I mean, everybody has different styles. You got hundreds of brands of things out there, so it's going to boil down to a personal preference. But to help make sure that people are on the right track, how would you lead somebody into this? Somebody that's interested in doing tracks, they got a thriving church, their band is getting bigger, but they want to take things to the next level. So what would you recommend they do?
Sure. Yeah. Start with what you have, if possible. That's always been my philosophy, and then add as little as possible, I guess. Yeah. But I've been doing tracks for a long, long time, and when we first started out, I think we were running off CD. Like I would create the tracks in a recording program, and then put it on CD, and then I think one channel would be the click, and the other channel would be the track, and send the click to the drummer, and we'd have to give the signal to the sound man to start it up, and it was pretty messed up. So we've gone through different formats, and I've used a regular recording software to do it. If you can afford it, Ableton Live is really, really nice for playing back tracks and loops live. Just the flexibility to change things. And it's not always I want to be super creative, so I need this flexibility. A lot of times it's whoa, we messed that up. We got to find a way to get back into it, and Live is really flexible it kind of helps you be forgiving with fixing over mistakes. So as far as getting into Live can be expensive. I know that there are different light versions of it that can be pretty limiting. So I think a lot of them have just 8 tracks and 8 scenes and stuff. So if you can get into Live, then I think you'll be impressed if anybody who goes that direction. But just start with what you have. Try to find a way to get where you want to go without spending your next paycheck on it, kind of thing. So but the other thing I would add is, as far as somebody who's looking to get started with tracks and loops, is don't overlook just the process of it and the leadership aspect of it too, because playing with a computer is totally different than just playing with other live musicians. And just to use the drummer, for example, I've worked with different drummers over the years who kind of are naturally predisposed either toward really being locked in with a consistent tempo or wanting to be like really free flowing.
Yeah.
And if it's those free flowing types that they just kind of resist playing with a strict tempo. And so you have to be ready to bring everybody along with this is why we're doing it. These are the advantages. These are the challenges that we'll have to work through. But just, don't just look at the technical aspect of getting started with this stuff. Make sure you just involve everybody with the whole process that's going on.
That's really good stuff, man. And I know it's definitely a challenge having to lead all of these people, deal with these different personalities, and musicians who come from different backgrounds, like you said, and you have to bring them on board and educate the people.
Yeah.
I've even had the opportunity to work with some great guys, but some people it's kind of hard to get them to do certain things, because they want to kind of do the free flow, and kind of just, I'm gonna just do my thing and all that kind of stuff. But it is a whole different world when you're doing this kind of stuff. So I want to ask you a little bit too. This is not an easy thing, what you're doing. So during the week, what is your workflow like during the week? You have to coordinate with different people. You got your band. Everybody has to be on the same page. Singers and everyone. Even if you guys write songs, compose music yourselves. What is your workflow like during the week?
It's always changing. It depends on the week. It depends on if we're doing something new. We're just starting a new system where we're trying to create a schedule that's more in line with what we need it to be, instead of just saying that we're going to rehearse this time all the time. We're trying to have one rehearsal a month where we do all of our new music. Have one rehearsal where it's more inclusive and everybody come along. Have another night that's just for creating and recording things, because we've had a lot of things just sitting on the shelf for a while that we need to finish up. Then we have another night that's just for the instruments. And then we try to get the vocals to prepare as much as they can on their own. And then we're meeting a little bit earlier on Sunday morning now to take advantage of that. But as far as what I do, I always try to make sure that I put everything together, including the backing tracks and my main stage sounds. I try to make sure that I have time set aside on Saturday to get that done before Sunday. Because if I try to go in there on Sunday without having played through it, without having refreshed my memory as to how the song flows or goes with the track, or how to get through these different sounds and have them lined up for different parts of the song, it makes things way rougher for everybody else if I'm not on point when I come in Sunday. So I've got to make sure I have my stuff together so I can be ready for other people not quite having their stuff together, if that makes sense.
Right. I got you. That's great. I want to ask you something just a tad bit different. In dealing with issues, because every week it's not always going to be smooth. Everything's not always going to go well. You're not going to always get along with people or see eye to eye. Some people don't know how to deal with the issues and deal with the people on their team, and get them to understand the big picture, if you will, for lack of better words. So how do you deal with issues, and even more so, how can you be proactive in avoiding certain issues, since it's not always going to be smooth, but it's just a part, it's just the nature of the beast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think what you're saying about being proactive is really the key. And I thought when you were starting to talk about people having issues with each other, I thought this is going to come back to like how I can be too rough sometimes. But yeah, my goal in any leadership role is to be as clear as possible about why we're doing what we're doing and how we're going to go about it. And not so much that I'm dictating how it's going to go, but to get everybody on board through the process, and make sure people have a chance to kind of weigh in on what we're doing. Because if they weigh in, then they'll be able to buy in. And so if we've set up our rehearsal schedule together and we've designed it together, then we can get people to actively commit to that. And if we come back, a few weeks later and somebody's not living up to that, it's a lot easier to have that conversation and say, this is what we had agreed to. Has something changed since that time? And just without any judgment, just being able to work through those types of situations. And sometimes it takes a while, even like years, to get to the point where you even know how to be clear about something.
Yeah.
So then it's just a process of just learning to work through it, but trying to be really just again, just not like dictating it necessarily, but just to make sure everyone is on the same page as much as possible about what we're doing and why we're doing it. What's the heart behind it?
Okay. Well, I greatly appreciate it, Peter. You've given us some really good information, man. I've enjoyed meeting you. It was definitely a pleasure being able to talk with you. Can you do one thing for us? Tell us, how can we connect with you on social media?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you so much for the opportunity
Yes.
to meet you and speak with you tonight and be connected with what you're doing as well. Everything as far as like ways to contact me and follow what I'm doing, go through my website, which is ourworshipsound.com, OURworshipsound.com. And you'll find me on Twitter. You can contact me through email. Sign up for an email list. YouTube also. It's all Our Worship Sound. So
Okay. Awesome, Peter. All right, man. Well, thanks again, man, and you be blessed.
thanks. You too, sir.
All right.